What if being busy is the very thing holding you back? What if the secret to doing more isn't adding but subtracting? And what can we learn from one of nature's most focused creatures, the bee? Today we are joined by a true master of time, focus and productivity, Jones Loflin. Jones is a best-selling author, sought-after keynote speaker and coach who has dedicated his career to helping people make the most of their most limited resource, time. In this episode, we'll explore what it really means to be productive in a distracted world. Jones brings us refreshing, practical perspectives on time management, energy alignment, and reclaiming focus. So whether you're a leader trying to cut through the noise or someone simply overwhelmed by the daily demands of life, this conversation will help you return to what matters most. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm greatly honoured today to be joined by Jones Loflin. Jones is a keynote speaker, a best-selling author and a coach who helps people to make the most of their time. He's the author of multiple books, including Always Growing, Juggling Elephants, Getting to It, Getting the Blue Ribbon, and his latest one, Focused as a Bee. And that's what we're going to focus on today. What does that mean? What does focused as a bee mean? We all have a challenge where we only get 24 hours in the day. It's our one genuinely non-renewable asset and resource that we have in the world. So the question is, are we making the most of our time? And Jones is going to give us some practical tips today on how we can do just that. So Jones, without any further ado, I really want to get to this content and give our audience some very practical tips here about making the most of their time. But what I'd love to know is a little bit more about your backstory and what inspired you into this area of focus and productivity and to write the books that you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mick. First of all, for the opportunity to be on your show. I appreciate, as you said, the practical tips that you offer your listeners. So that's my challenge today, to make this something that's very actionable for your listeners. A little bit about me. I've been in the speaking training space for about 30 years, working around that whole idea of making the best choices with your time. Background as a high school teacher before I went into speaking training and development. You asked me about what inspired me to write or maybe to work in the way I do. I was a youth speaker up to about 2000 and began to move into the education and corporate market. And in 2000, someone handed me a copy of the book, Who Moved My Cheese? Now, your listeners who are probably 35 and under are going, what? But it was an amazing book, had profound impact on me, and I saw the power of story. So that has been my guiding principle in my writing and my speaking, is to provide a framework like we find in that book to help people take a step forward in ways that are important to them. So that's the inspiration for why I do what I do. Very similar to that, my newest book, Focused as a Bee, builds on the experiences that my daughter Sydney and I have had working with honeybees and just seeing how much they get done, and then asking ourselves, how do they do that? And what are the principles that we could apply to our own situations to improve our focus?
So really good, Jones. As I said in the intro, this is the one universal truth for all of us. We only get 24 hours in a day, regardless of what age you are, what culture you come from, what industry you're in. Time is finite. How do we get ourselves into a situation where we can think about how we get the most of our time? Where does it start is the general question.
Yeah, I think a great place to start is, where do you want to go? What is it you want to accomplish? The whole idea behind Focused as a Bee is that, the book cover, if your listeners, for those of you listening, you can't see this, but it says busy as a bee, but then busy's marked out and has the word focused. So often we're busy. How was your day? Oh, I was so busy. Okay. In other words, there's activity, but is there necessary accomplishment, movement toward objective or goals that are important for you as your team? And so I think we've got to start being more intentional about assessing, are we using our time and energy toward the outcomes we want? And that's what has always fascinated me about honeybees and bees in general, but especially honeybees, because that's what I'm familiar with, is that every action they take is aligned with the outcome they want, which is to have a successful hive, to thrive, to have a colony for next season. And everything they do, if you've been beekeeping long enough, you go, I know exactly why they're doing that, because that's going to help contribute to this and this and this, which is going to get them to the outcome they want. Conversely, if I took a poll of some of your listeners, and if somebody took a poll of me, I'd say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how many of your actions are aligned with the outcomes you want? I wouldn't get a 10, Mick. Maybe you would, but I wouldn't, because I put activities into my day that don't contribute to the outcomes that I really want to have.
Yeah, this is really interesting, Jones. And I've got to stick my hand up and say guilty as charged. And I think everyone in the audience will be. And here's the thing is like when you're going home from work and you're tired and you're exhausted and you've had a busy day, I often ask myself a similar question to your book here, Jones. I say, was I busy being busy, or was I busy being focused, or was I busy being prolific? Was I busy being impactful? And all of those words mean that I wasn't just busy. Some people call it well scheduled, but I wasn't just busy jumping from meeting to meeting, but something meaningful happened. I'm going to put it to you something interesting around this concept of the focus and the purpose on something bigger. I'm going to say on the days that I go home where I have had a busy being impactful day, I'm actually less tired than on the days that I was busy being busy. So there's something about that busyness that's exhausting. How does that sit with you?
Yeah. Well, I guess we probably need to start, Mick, or as I think about it, with a definition of focused. And focused is the intentional direction of our time and energy toward what matters most. Again, the intentional direction of our time and attention toward what, or time and energy toward what matters most. Those days where you fight that, as you said, when we're busy, when we're not focused, we're consistently trying to minimize those distractions. We're trying to stay on track. We don't have a plan for how we want to spend our time. So our mind keeps reminding us, well, why don't you work on that? Or why don't you work on that? Or, hey, you could work on that. And it's just this struggle throughout the day. And you're right. When we go home, we're going, yeah, I'm so exhausted, but I don't really feel like I accomplished anything of value. Whereas if we are focused, if we've made our plan and we've stuck to it as much as possible, we're always going to have things happen that are urgent or that we can't control. But if we've done that as much as possible, we do go home with that sense of accomplishment. And that in itself renews some of that energy we've been pouring out all day.
Yeah, so it does feel good when we know that we've done something that mattered, and we can go home proud. And if our family ask us, oh, did you have a good day today? We can say, yeah, I did. I did something that mattered, and I achieved what I set out to achieve. But I'm going to say that if you did a stock take of it, and maybe this is one tip here, if you did a stock take of it, how many days in the week can you genuinely say that you did that?
Yeah. Oh, that's the key, isn't it? Is it's an everyday thing. It's not just where we can, do it one day and not do it another. We've got to intentionally say, how can I make each day more impactful? I like your word there. That's the word I like to say. My day was impactful. It was meaningful. Productive can be kind of a misnomer, because that just means I was active, productive. I was producing something. I was moving, but were you really creating something of value or significance? And it is important that daily, even during the day, we take stock and say, am I focusing my time and energy on what's most important? Does my calendar reflect that? And if not, what changes could I make to get more in line with, my highest priority?
Yeah, really good. Let's unpack this word highest priority a little bit more, Jones, because it was something that you said before that caught my attention around the honeybees. And that was even the little activities, right? So a lot of people have cotton on to the power of why and having a meaningful purpose, but it's often pitched in a lofty goal, a lofty but meaningful goal, or a worthy cause, whatever you want to call it. That's the mountain that you're trying to get to the top of. But what I heard when you were talking about the honeybees, it's working back from that goal, and it's even the little activities that there's always a why. I'm not just doing this spreadsheet because I like numbers and making pivot tables. I'm doing this because it unlocks some other activity, which might be my activity, or it might be someone else in the team's activity. And they're going to do something that unlocks someone else. And So each activity had some kind of micro purpose to it, a micro why, not just the macro why of the big goal that we're all working towards, but working it back to a micro why. How does that sit with you?
Oh, micro purpose, micro. You've got a new book, Mick, that you need to write now. Is that because you're right? We need to be able to stop and say, how is this contributing to my larger why or my purpose? A common example when I'm coaching someone is, how many times a day do you find yourself mindlessly scrolling on your smartphone? And of course, they'll give me a number and I'll say, in those moments, if you were to ask yourself, how is this helping me, accomplish my goal or my highest priority for the day? How would you respond to yourself and say, well, I don't have to respond to myself. It's not. I'm like, right. But in that moment, when you're intentional and say, how is this activity helping me to move my goals forward? And if the answer is, and if you can answer that quickly, great, keep doing it. But if you get your internal pushback, like, well, it's not really. Okay. What could?
There needs to be a little bit of honesty there as well, that you don't convince yourself I was just doing research or something.
Yes,
like that.
yes. I needed a break.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to ask about rest and relaxation at some point in the conversation, and we're definitely going to come back to the distractions. I want to double down one more time on this micro purpose. I'm going to put to you two things, Jones. One is that people will do almost any task, ethical task that doesn't contravene their values, legal, ethical task. They'll do almost any task, even if it's hard and not fun, if they understand why they're doing it. And then I'm going to add to it, they'll even accept a decision that on the surface they don't fully like the decision, but they'll accept that decision if someone has explained the rationale behind that decision, which is also a micro why. We're going in this direction because. So if we can tap into this, yes, we've got our macro why, we know that, but if we can tap into the micro why of why this task now, what makes it important, and then why this decision now, and what makes that important, all of a sudden people get on board and start working hard. How does that sit with you?
Yeah. As you were going through the whys, I was thinking of the Toyota way, the 5 whys that you go through. And I think that's important when someone is engaging in a task or thinking of engaging in a task. Why not ask yourself those whys? Why am I doing this? Because this. Okay, well, why is that important? Well, because this is that. And you're eventually going to get to your larger purpose of the reason that you're choosing that. But I think that's an important process that people can use. Back to your point for a moment, from a leadership standpoint, I know many of your listeners are in leadership roles, is that yes, when we can explain the why, it doesn't have to, be a 10-minute explanation, but we can go ahead and help people see, here's the reason we're doing this. It's going to give us information. We may fail at this, but it's going to help us to see if this is a valid or viable direction to go once we take this step. And once we have that, then we're going to assess again, what's our next step to take. But I think giving your team that clarity is extremely important because, as you said, if they've got that and they trust you, then they're willing to take those actions and engage in uncomfortable tasks towards an outcome that, all of us share, a goal toward.
Yeah, really good. Okay, so we're giving clarity of purpose. We're giving clarity of why, macro why, micro why. The next challenge I want to put to you, Jones, is then prioritization. So anyone listening to the show right now, I think they're going to cotton on to this thought. Okay, everything I should do should have a meaning. It should have some kind of connecting purpose that connects to the bigger picture. They're going to get that. They might now turn around to you, Jones, and say, but I can come up with 12 things instantly on my to-do list that have a connecting meaning. How do they know what is the most impactful thing to do in this moment against that list of 12?
Sure. I'm going to reflect, I forget which way I'm going, but to the world of honeybees. Again, one of the things that fascinates me about honeybees is that in their life cycle, they have one job at a time. And at a certain age, they might clean out the cells in the honeycomb. Another one, they might make honeycomb. Another one, they might be nursing or taking care of the eggs that are going to hatch out. Another one is they're going to go out and forage for, nectar and pollen. And another one, they might be soldier bees, but they keep that job until it's done because they know the critical importance intuitively. Now, of course, it's genetics. They know the importance to the rest of the hive to do that. And when people say to me, it's not uncommon, people say, oh yeah, Jones, you talk about prioritizing, permission to prioritize, but I do have 12 things that I could do right now. And I can look at them and say, okay, what's the one job that you recognize that could most move you forward toward this week's goal or this month's goal or your highest priority? Or what's the one job that your team is depending on you to do so that they can do their work, so that they can accomplish what's important in their roles? And I got to tell you, Mick, it might take them a little bit of time to process, but then they'll go, yeah, I need to have a conversation with so-and-so, or I need to invest some time in, coming up with a strategic plan for how we're going to tackle this. Or there's always a one job if we stop and say, yes, this needs to be done right now, because it's a key to other things getting done. We often just don't stop long enough to figure out what it is.
There's three things I'm picking up there, and I want to test it with you, Jones, to make sure I'm getting it clear. The first one is, which of those 12 tasks has the biggest impact on the goal? I'm going to say that one's relatively obvious, but we need to intentionally look at that. The second one was the world of co-creation, that what can I do that unlocks productivity for someone else? So by doing number 7 on my list, it's going to unlock the productivity of someone else in the team, and having that co-creation world where, and by the way, it might be to and fro. When they do that activity, it unlocks my next activity. So
yes. So
the co-creation. The third one was interesting there that I picked up was, I'm going to put it to you that half-finished tasks don't help you get to the goal. So, and I'm a big advocate that multitasking just does not work. So what is the task that you can see through to completion, not just get it half done?
Yes. Oh, spot on. I mean, spot on, Mick. I love it. And especially your last one, because the visual here, if you're thinking about being a bee, focused as a bee, imagine if you were a bee and you might start and you say, you know what, I'm going to go forage today. So you start flying out of the hive towards, a tree that's blooming, and you're going to gather some pollen. And about halfway there, you go, I think I would rather, work with the nurse, the baby bees today. I'd like to take care of them. And about the time you crawl over the honeycomb and you get, you know what? I think I'd like to help, transfer the pollen that's coming into the hive today. And I mean, you see what's happening is if they jump from one, there's so much energy lost with those bees when they don't finish. Honeybees practice a thing called flower fidelity. When they go out to forage, they'll only go to one type of flower because they're not going to jump from this type of flower to that type of flower, because they know that's, intuitively again, but they know that's a waste of energy. And if they just stay the course until it's done, then they can move to the next one job or the next task. And that other person, as you said, is enabled to be able to do what's most important in their role as well.
All right. So we're definitely heading in that direction. The first one is around this multitasking. Let's put a pin in that as we go. I'm going to say it blunt to everyone in the audience. Multitasking does not work. And repeat that to yourself multiple times. Multitasking does not work. The cost of task switching way outweighs any benefit of you thinking that you're being prolific. It doesn't work. So structure your day in time blocks or whatever works for you to make sure you see things through to completion. Otherwise, your time is going in the task switching. The other curious thing that you said there when you said people kind of going off and doing other tasks, what I was picking up there, and I see this in myself and I see it in others, I tend to gravitate towards tasks that I enjoy doing. And it means that I might not be doing the things that are most impactful because I got distracted by the things. So the things that I don't enjoy as much, even if it has a why, seem to take me longer than they should. But as soon as I'm doing something that I enjoy doing, I get into a flow state and all of a sudden I'm prolific again. What is your guidance on this whole thing between, finding yourself in those flow states on some task, and then there's others that you're kind of avoiding, or if you are doing it, you're kind of dragging your feet a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, how long is this podcast? 2 hours? Okay. And I love this concept because one of the things that, one of the misconceptions people have about focus is they just naturally turn it on. And we can talk about creating environments and those things later. But we have to work at improving our ability to focus. And one of the things we have to remember is internally, our mind doesn't like, loose ends. Our mind doesn't like for things to be hard. Remember, our brains use 25% of our body's energy. Our mind wants things to be simple. So when someone has blocked out on their calendar, work on project X for 1 hour, but if they haven't taken the time to outline the steps of here's what I think I can accomplish in 1 hour and been very clear about that, they start to work on project X, and all of a sudden their mind reminds them, did you pay your auto insurance bill last week? What's for dinner tonight? I'm kind of hungry. We haven't had Mexican in a while. I mean, and your mind is just trying to distract you because it's like, this is hard. You didn't plan ahead for what steps you were going to take on Project X. So now your mind is just racing with all these other possibilities because it wants to go do something easy, which, as you said, that gets us into a flow state because we know what we're going to do there. It's extremely important that if we're hesitating on something, it's what's causing me to hesitate. We'll say, well, it's hard. Well, I don't know what to do. Okay, break it down into a one job that is manageable. I was working with a coaching client a few weeks ago, and they were talking, we're kind of on this whole subject. And I said, what's your pressure that I'm sensing here about this task? And they said, well, it's just a lot, Jones. It's going to require, they didn't say pivot tables, but it's going to require a lot of spreadsheeting and those things. I said, well, what's the first thing that you need to do related to that spreadsheet? Well, I need to finish it. I said, well, that sounds hard. I said, what's the first thing? Well, I need to gather the numbers from last quarter. Okay, well, that doesn't sound too difficult. No, I says, what's a one job before you even do that? And they're like, I just need to schedule to do that in my calendar to go gather the numbers. I'm like, does that sound scary to you? And they're like, no, I could do that. I'm like, there you go. Take care of the first thing that's not hard. And then your mind will let you work on it because it's not something that's complex or complicated. Then do the next one job related to the project. So that's one way. We could talk about lots of others that help with procrastination, but I think you got to get it simple and let your brain know, okay, this is what we're going to be doing specifically. And then your mind will let you work on it as opposed to trying to push you to other things.
Yeah, this is really good, Jones. You've made me realize something that I've been doing and I didn't even realize the power of it. So I'm going to play it back to you. So how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. If you look at the elephant is daunting. Now, here's the example that I want to share with you, Jones. You and I are both authors. If I set myself down and go, right, I'm going to write my book today, that's very daunting and that's never going to happen, right? But what I do, and I've worked out a few things in terms of what length of time block I'm best working on. I know that for myself by paying attention. What time of day am I best writing? All of these things I already know. But then for each session, I'll set myself a goal and go, right, I'm going to write 500 words. I even go further than that. I go, I'm going to write 500 words and today's topic is, and it'll be out of my story, like I have a mind map of each chapter of the book and it's got all these little branches. It'll be one little branch and go, I'm going to write 500 words on topic X. And I would have already had that in my outline of the book. And I sit down. Here's the thing. When I do that, Jones, I don't write 500 words. I'll end up writing 1,200, 1,500 words. But if I didn't start with that, I'll end up writing 0 words. If I just sat down and go, right, I'm going to write my book and rub my hands together and clack on the keyboard, 0 words. But when I set the goal of 500, I exceed it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I mean, I love that example for your listeners is that it's taking that opportunity to, you took permission to plan. You gave yourself permission to plan before you tried to focus on something very specific, which was 500 words about that topic. You mind mapped it. You laid it out. So it was easy for you to go grab that one area or focus on that one area and get started with it because you had done the focus work on the outline before you tried to sit down and do the content piece. Fantastic. I mean, again, it's creating that environment where you can focus. It's taking those steps that are going to help you? Have you gathered the resources, the materials you're going to need? Have you got just the tabs open on your computer that you're going to need instead of having 40 open and getting notifications, that type of thing? There's just so many things that we can do that when we really want to do that deep work, we'll be ready. But a lot of things have to start happening before we engage in that task.
Yeah, really good. So now you can break that into any task and you're thinking about, okay, we're about to go into a meeting, a session, a work block, whatever. What does success look like? And how will I know when I'm done? And if you start with that definition, you're going to have a much better time.
Yeah, yeah. Can I just echo what you just said about that? Knowing what done looks like. What does done look like with a task or with a project? Or what does, I'm going to work on this for the next 30 minutes. Then stopping yourself and saying, what does done look like after 30 minutes? Instead of just leaving it really open-ended, because then we're back to that whole, oh, this is heavy. But if we say, you know what, in 30 minutes, I would like to have 3 ideas, or I'd like to have an outline for the first 15 minutes, or I'd like to come up with 3 options for, then all of a sudden we've got a way to measure how we're doing, manage that. And then when we're done, what I wanted to do and what I actually got done are going to be a lot more closely aligned.
Yeah, really good, Jones. And this is going to be a nice segue to one of the ones I wanted to talk to you about. So you can do that process that Jones is talking about any meeting that you have, and you can agree it together before the meeting starts. And I guarantee you the meeting will be more impactful and productive if you do this. Here's what I want to come to now. Another element of distraction or busyness is that I used that word well scheduled before. Someone that looks at their calendar at the start of the day and all they see is a sea of blue, meeting, and they're just going from one meeting to another. I do this myself. I'm guilty as charged, but going from one meeting to another. And I'm not saying that meetings are not important and not productive, because they play an important role. But at the end of the day, of a day of 8 back-to-back meetings, I do go home going, well, I was busy today, but what did I do? What advice can you give to someone who looks at their calendar? It might be the entire week and it's already booked out with meetings. How do they break this?
I always like to ask whenever somebody brings that to me, and I hear this so often in coaching, is that, what percent of your day are you in control of? And, rarely do I get someone who will tell me 0%. Sometimes some people in healthcare might start with that, but even them, we can usually find that it's 10 or 15 or 20%. But I like to ask you, what percent of your day are you in control of? And when I do that, then they'll say, well, maybe 25% of my day. Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, how well would you say you're using that 25% that you are in control of? And so if you're not in control of back-to-back-to-back meetings, if you have no opportunity to influence changes there, I think you have to start with the discretionary time that you do have. And it may only be 30 minutes or an hour a day. Are you planning that? Not just, just kind of moving through it. Okay, I finished that meeting. I think I'll go check my email while I'm waiting to start this next meeting. But are you planning that hour well toward the outcomes that you want? Maybe for you, if you've got a sea full of blue on your calendar because of meetings, maybe 30 minutes of that 1 hour should just be set aside to process what you've been listening to and thinking about in the meetings. And here's the great part, Mick. If we start training our minds that we're going to do that, when we're going through the 5th meeting of the day and going, oh gosh, I'm never going to remember all this. Your mind goes, wait a minute. You've got a 30-minute time block after this meeting is over or at the end of the day where you're going just to process everything that happened today. You're going to take notes. You're going to reflect. You're going to do something. So I think the answer is start with what you can control and then try to build in what you need in those discretionary places in your day, whether it's mental renewal, whether it's focus work on something else. But find that opportunity. As you said earlier, get that small win. And then as you start getting that momentum, then maybe it is time to push back on some of those meetings. If you're in a leadership role, one of the things that I counsel some of my leaders about, if you're in a leadership role, do you have someone on your team who could participate in that meeting instead of you? There's all kinds of strategies that we can use. And one more thing, I know it's kind of a long answer. One of the ways that I like to move into a discussion with someone when their day is full of meetings and those things, I like to ask them, I say, okay, what's not getting done in your day or getting done well? Because we all have this victimization of like, well, how's your day? Oh, I'm so overwhelmed. With what? Everything. Well, that's not helpful. But getting people to be specific about what's not getting accomplished, I think is a really important place to start when they're feeling overwhelmed with meetings or deadlines or whatever it is. Because once we have something specific, then we can work towards finding it in their day. What does that look like? Is it 30 minutes in your day? Is it 30 minutes twice a day? Is it an hour a day? Is it 3 times a week? Okay, now let's, tactically go into your schedule and say, all right, where's there opportunity here to begin increasing that space in your day because of things you're taking out or delegating or whatever, so that you can get some of those things done that aren't happening.
Yeah, really good, James. I'm going to work backwards on that one. I'm going to start with that last bit, and it's a bit of a stock take of the opportunity cost of by saying yes to all the things you're saying yes to. What's not getting done, or what's not getting done because of that. That's an interesting one. So I like what you said about start with what is in your control. What is the discretionary time? I'm sure that there's at least 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever the case may be, and how well are you using it? And you said in there, start planning to use that. I'm going to reverse it and start using that to plan.
Yes.
So if you've got 30 minutes in your day that you can use discretionary, use that to do a bit of planning and a bit of forethought. You also then were processing on something. I want to get to the power of presence now and being present in every meeting. I'm going to share a guilty secret here of a trap that I fall into often. But when I do this the other way, it really works. And that is about intentionality. And you were saying about having some time to process what just happened, which I think is very powerful. And then I'm going to say also use that same time to prepare your mind for the next meeting. And when I do this, it always works. Set an intention for a meeting. Okay, how do I need to show up for this meeting? What does good look like? How will I know I'm finished? If I have that mental process before the meeting, it always goes better. And then, no, I like what you said, look in your calendar and go, don't worry about the overwhelm, because you've got 30 minutes this afternoon where you're going to process everything that happened today so that you can give yourself the permission then to be present in every meeting. Now, here's the guilty thing that I fall into the trap of from time to time. If I have a day, Jones, where my first meeting of the day doesn't go that well, and it might even run a little bit over schedule as well, and then I go from meeting one, I go into meeting two, still thinking about what happened in meeting one. I'm still processing, and I'm not fully present with the person that I'm now meeting in meeting two. And guess what happens for the rest of the day? I go into meeting three thinking about meeting two. I go into meeting four thinking about, that's horrible. And they're my worst days. They're my worst productivity days when I let that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. No question. And one of the things that I think about when you said that, Mick, is one of my heroes in life is Hiram Smith, who was developer of the Franklin Planner, those big brown binders we would carry around in the late 80s that helped us manage our time. And he would often say, if you have 3 minutes, take one to plan the other two. And, I think about, like you said, if a meeting doesn't go well, normally that means there's some miscommunication between you and a team member, or there's a lack of clarity on expectations and those things. And even in that, they'll say you have 3 minutes between a meeting, which is not uncommon sometimes, is okay. What do I need to do to help resolve that conflict or that miscommunication or whatever? And just taking a moment and if nothing else, just writing it down or making a note in your app or whatever it is that you use to manage your time well, just to help your mind go, okay, you've got a plan to address this loose end or this open loop that you have. I find for me, just that quick action helps me to be a little more present when I go into that next meeting. But if I'm carrying a bunch of stuff that's unresolved into every meeting, by the end of the day, I'm mentally overloaded. And is it any wonder I can't, be present in that fifth meeting that day?
Yeah, it's really good. And then you've got the busy mind element of this. And I'll share another story that related to this as well. So if I look ahead and go, no, it's okay, I've got time to process that later, like you said before. But the other thing is just like taking little notes. And I'm going to compare it to when I'm trying to go to sleep at night and I've got something racing through my mind. I know that, and I've got a little pen and paper often next to my bed, or sometimes I do digitally take the note. As soon as I write it down, I can go to sleep because I know I'm not going to forget about it. And there's something about that to give it a home, to give it a parking lot. So now I can be focused on what I do now, whether it's getting to sleep or focusing on the meeting that I'm in. Because I've taken that little note, my mind relaxes and then I can be present.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we actually, research has shown we have a condition known as Zeigarnik effect. And if you want to fact check me on Zeigarnik, and Bluma Zeigarnik was a Russian psychologist back in the 1920s. And she would go into a restaurant and she would ask the waiters and waitresses what the people had ordered. And she found that the waiters and waitresses could recall in vivid detail what people had ordered until the food was delivered. Once the food was delivered, they had trouble recalling it because their minds were holding on to it until the food was delivered. Once the food was delivered, I don't need to hold on to that information anymore. So your example is that, okay, I've got this thought and I've got two choices. Either I can hold on to it and hope that I remember it in the morning, or I can make a note now and my mind goes, you got this. And then I can, have time or, have the peace of mind to be able to sleep better that night.
Yeah, really good. Okay. All right. Now, getting back to the scheduling part, the other statement that we hear often is that I'm living to someone else's agenda. Or I'm not living to my own agenda. So how do we go through that list? We hinted towards this before. How do we go through that list and start saying no to the meetings or the tasks that are not impactful, or delegate them? Like you said, send a team member to that meeting. How do we start that step? If we've never done it before, how do we start saying no to things so we have more room for more impactful things?
Yeah. There's a technique that I teach in some of my keynote presentations with people who are overloaded or, having similar challenges that I have no time for me. And it's an acronym. It's TAD. Make sure my accent comes across correctly. TAD. T as in Tom, A as in Apple, D as in Dad. And I say, let's go find you a tad more time. And the T is transfer. What is something you're currently doing that someone else could be doing all or part of? Even if it would only save you or create for you 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And I'm not just talking about work tasks either. I mean, maybe there's something going on around your home or a service that you don't currently pay for that you have the financial bandwidth that you could pay for that would open up some space for you. But what could you transfer to someone else to handle or to manage or to do that would open up some space for you? Now, you're saying, Jones, that sounds a lot like delegate. Well, it is, but then the acronym would make no sense. That's why I use transfer, okay? The A is automate. It's all about automating things so you don't have to make as many analog decisions. Research shows that we make about 35,000 decisions a day. Some of them are unconscious, just involuntary, but some of them are very conscious. And so if we're having to spend mental energy trying to make a decision, how could we make less decisions each day? Whether that's with, Steve Jobs, of course, was one of the ultimate examples with, wearing the same type of clothes each day. But even what are some things you could do to make less decisions? Could you meal prep or meal plan on the weekend so that you don't have to be in a meeting at 3:00 on Monday afternoon going, now, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? And then all of a sudden your boss just said something really impactful and you're going, wait, what did he say? Or what did she say? But what could you automate? How could you make less decisions? How could those decisions already be made for you? D is drop. What could you stop doing that would open up some space in your day? And I normally challenge my audiences. I want you to pick something you could transfer, automate, or drop that would open up 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a week for you. And I got to tell you, Mick, I've never had anyone not be able to tell me something that they could almost immediately go, yeah, I could do that. And then when you get that small win of having that little bit of space, now you've got more room to plan, as you said. And once I start planning, I'm going to be more efficient in how I'm using my time. So now we've got this snowball of opportunity getting bigger because we stopped long enough to say, where can I begin to create a little space so I can plan more efficiently and effectively and make better choices with my time?
Yeah, I love it, Jones. This is very actionable. So everyone listening to this, if you need a tad more time, what are you going to do? You're going to transfer, automate, or drop. On the transfer, share something as well here, Jones, coming back to, remember what I said before about, you end up doing tasks that, I don't really enjoy this one, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a funny thing I found is, let's use pivot tables again, because we used that as an example before. If you're someone that dreads pivot tables because you just don't find it fun, I guarantee you, if you look around your business, you're going to find someone in the company that loves doing pivot tables.
God bless them.
Yeah. So if you can transfer it to the person, guess what? You've made their day too. They start rubbing their hands together. Oh, I'm getting to do this pivot table for Jones today. And you've got it transferred. You've got a tad more time. And guess what? You've just made their day as well. So yeah, really good.
Well, let me give you an example from my world. A real one for me is I love speaking. I love coaching. I love training. I hate making PowerPoints presentations. I just absolutely abhor doing, and I love kind of creating the content. But the reason I wind up doing it sometimes, Mick, is I haven't allotted enough time to transfer that to someone else. And so I wind up having to make the last minute changes. But when I plan my time more effectively, I've got a couple people who I can say, hey, I need a PowerPoint. I need to upgrade. I need this change, that change. I want to make it look brighter or fresher. And if I've done my work ahead of time, I can toss that to them and they come back with something. I go, wow, that would have taken me 6 months and it only looked half as good. But yeah, it's all about, what do I need to start taking a small step for? Maybe, and for me, sometimes it's, Jones, you need to start planning sooner for that next presentation or engagement so that you can hand off that PowerPoint creation to someone else. So I think we all know something we could do.
This is so on spot here, Jones, that if I think about it, 7 p.m. the night before the presentation, transferring to someone else at that point is unfair. You know it's unfair, so you'll end up doing it yourself and you'll end up working till midnight to prepare it. If you had a thought of it a week before, someone else could have done it for you. Yeah, really good. Okay, we cannot let go of the topic of distraction without talking about social media, doom scrolling, the other distractions in our life that seem to take hold. Any tips? I mean, I'm another one. I'm guilty as charged on this one. I'm pretty conscious of it, so I know how to put my phone down once I realize that I'm doing it. But these mindless tasks that take hours if we let it.
Yeah, if we let it. We talk about this in the book. I think there are 3 categories of distractions. And I think it's important that we think about which one is the most damaging to our ability to focus or stay present. And those 3 categories very simply are, the first one are internal thoughts. And we've talked about some of those today, Mick. It's the undone stuff that just kind of keeps rolling around in our mind. It's imposter syndrome. It's that inner critic. There's all those things that we're thinking about. And there are tactics that we can use to address those. And we've talked about, write it down. Don't let it just sit there and ruminate. Do something with it in the moment. So that's the first category that might be a distraction. The second one, it's that external environment. It is the smartphone that you may have too close to your workspace. It's the sounds around you. It's the things that you see that can distract you. I mean, our environment shapes our attention so much more than we realize. So that's the second piece. The third one, which people go, wait a minute, that's a distraction. And I believe it is, are the expectations of others. If we don't have clarity of expectation about the work we should be doing, what done looks like for one of our team members or for our boss, or if we're the boss, somebody else on our team, we have to have clarity of expectation and alignment with others, or we're not working as efficiently as we should and as focused. And then our mind starts pulling us away to some of those other distractions, which are sometimes in those other 2 categories. So I think those are the 3 areas. Let's stay on the one about smartphones and just doom scrolling, those things. I love the work of James Clear and all, Atomic Habits, where he talks about creating friction. Create friction around those things that you're doing that are distracting you. Make the things that you want to do easier to do. So, sometimes for people, it could be removing a certain social media app from your phone. You can leave it on your desktop or tablet, but take it off your phone. Getting into the routine that when you're preparing to do focused work, the phone goes on airplane mode, or it goes far enough away that you can't reach it quickly. but taking some step to make it harder to be distracted in that way, instead of leaving it there going, oh yeah, I'm going to be focused. And every time it dings or vibrates, then immediately you're taken out of the moment. And that's using a lot of willpower, which is mental energy. You really need to be focusing on the task in front of you.
Yeah, really good, James. And I'm going to share something that the audience wouldn't know that you and I did at the start of this conversation. Both of us put our phones on airplane mode before we started this conversation. We could have put our phones out of reach as well. We didn't do that, but that's okay. I really like this. And with James Clear's work, there's lots of powerful techniques in atomic habits, habit stacking, etc. But the biggest one is the friction and the frictionless. So make it easier to do the habits that you're trying to build and make it harder to break the habits you're trying to break. It's absolutely really powerful.
And let me give you an example from my world, if I may, because part of managing distractions is getting yourself into a place where you aren't going to have those distractions, or getting yourself more into that focus mode, if you will. You talked about writing. I'm going to tell you about how I get into a honey flow state, as we call it in the book, flow state, when I'm writing. The first thing I do is, I put my phone on airplane mode. I actually put my laptop on airplane mode as well. I actually have a candle that I open and sit it out. I don't actually light it, but it's got a certain smell that brightens me, so that now my mind's kind of brightened a little bit. I put on instrumental music. Not something with words, because I don't know about you, Mick, but if it's got words, I start singing along with it and I get distracted. Or if it's from the 80s, I remember back when I had hair and I was in high school and all that. I do all those things prior to getting into that focus mode, and then I don't have as many distractions. But if I didn't have some music on to kind of keep my mind occupied in other ways, if I didn't, create some smells that made it brighter, didn't put my phone on airplane mode, I think, doing all those things is kind of preempts and prevents some of those distractions that are most common to us, along with planning exactly what I'm going to be working on in that focus time.
Yeah, really good, Jones. All of this is reminding me, in a few minutes' time, I'm going to ask you what your favorite quote is. All of this is reminding me of one of my 3 favorite quotes. Guilty secret, I ask all of my guests what their favorite quote is, and I have multiple. But anyway, one of my favorite quotes comes from Timothy Galway, the author of The Inner Game, and it's performance is equal to potential minus interference. Performance is equal to potential minus interference. And for him, he comes from a tennis world. The interference in tennis players is mostly in their mind, by the way. But all of these things, the distractions, the things that are not impactful, they're all forms of interference. So you got 2 choices if you want to be more productive and to be a high-performance individual. You either build your potential, good, knowledge, skills, practice, or you remove the interference.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, what a great combination there. You create what is going to help you, or you remove. I use a simple example sometimes. If there were a plate of chocolate chip cookies, sitting here in front of me, I could say, I'm not going to eat any of those cookies. I don't. I'm trying to be healthier right now. I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to show lots of willpower. And I say, what's the most obvious thing for me to do? They're like, put the cookies in another room. Get them away, give them away. Do something. I mean, we waste so much energy trying to not be distracted instead of, as you said, creating those habits or getting ourselves in a better place where those distractions aren't even there in the first place. We don't even notice.
Yeah, really good, Jones. Okay. Now, I promised that we'd talk about rest and relaxation.
Oh, yes.
One of the things that people in the audience might be thinking is, okay, but if I do what Jones says and I'm impactful every minute of the day, when am I going to rest and relax? Because we need to recharge our batteries too. So how does that fit into all of this?
Okay. Cue my beloved honeybees once again. Here they come. In a healthy hive, listen carefully, the average honeybee takes about 40 naps per day. 40 naps per day. 40 naps per day. The bees that are going out to collect the nectar and the pollen, they may take as many as 50 naps per day. And of course, they're not, getting a pill and laying down for 3 hours, but they are stopping and actually stopping their body movements for just a few moments, relaxing for a minute, and then they're going about their task again. So, in a healthy hive, bees rest more than they work. Why is that critical for us? It reminds us that focus takes energy. And whether you're focusing on a relationship with your significant other or your team at work, or you're engaged in, playing a round of golf or something, that we need those moments where we stop and we rest, strategically stop. And we talk about asking yourself in those moments, what do I need rest from? That bee needs rest from movement, from activity. Some of your listeners may be in a real creative space right now and having to work on doing a lot of problem solving. And maybe what some of them need rest from, I need rest from problem solving. Okay, well, how are you going to get that rest? I need to go do something mindless. Excellent. Go do that. Because while you're doing something mindless, you're recharging those problem solving batteries, if there is such a thing, so that when it's time to go back to problem solving, you're much fresher and able to be fully present in the moment. I mean, that's what the bees are doing. They're resting for a moment, so they're prepared for what the next moment requires of them.
Yeah, really good question. What am I resting from? It might be that decision fatigue that you spoke about before, right? I'm also going to say that if you're going to go into this moment of rest and relaxation, I'm going to say, how will you know when you're done? So set a goal, set a time, and go, right, I am going to go and spend time with my son for 40 minutes before I get back to writing the book or whatever the case may be. Okay. Really powerful, Jones. There's been so many actionable insights from today. It's been an absolute gem of an interview, really unlocking the power of understanding your purpose, your macro why, your micro whys, breaking those goals back down to micro tasks that you can actually know when you finish that task, and setting the intention, setting the goal for each session, really looking at your calendar and understanding, what's working, what's not working for you, building in time to plan, building in time to process, being present in the moment in every meeting, because you have those times where you can plan and process. And if you need a tad more time, what can you transfer? What can you automate? What can you drop? These are all things that everyone can do, the activities that Jones has said in today's interview. So thank you so much for sharing that gift with us. I'm going to take us now to our rapid round. These are the same 4 questions we ask all of our guests. So what's the one thing you know now, Jones Loflin, that you wish you knew when you were 20?
The number one thing for me is I wish I had focused more on developing relationships with other people as opposed to trying to be a lone wolf. That would be probably the number one thing for me. I wish I had developed more relationships with others to help grow me personally and professionally versus sometimes having that lone wolf mentality.
Yeah, that's a powerful revelation. Yeah, I love it, Jones. What is your favorite book?
Yes, I mentioned it earlier. No question. Who Moved My Cheese? By far, simply because it changed my work and my life, simply because it helped me to finally see where I was and the step I needed to take to move forward.
Yeah, good one. And as you said earlier, it's a bit older. So if you haven't heard of it before, go and look it up. What's your favorite quote?
Zig Ziglar, motivational speaker back in the 80s, had a quote. He's since passed, but he had a quote that says, "Go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you can see farther." So many people, including me, when we look at something we want to do, we want to have all 15 steps figured out. And what Zig's quote reminds us of is, no, go as far as you can see. Have the conversation. Try this, use this program, take some step, and then go, what did I learn from that now I can use to take another step? I think that's always been one of my life quotes.
Yeah, love it. Really powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, there's going to be people that they're listening to this and they're probably looking in a mirror the whole time going, yeah, I do that. Yeah, I do that. Like I did, the guilty secrets of, it's easy to fall into some of these bad practices. If someone truly does want to take back control of their time, how do people find you and take advantage of your work?
Well, thank you for asking that. I'm going to direct them first to LinkedIn. Of course, it's a worldwide platform, and so I love connecting with people from wherever they might be. On LinkedIn, I actually put out some tips and ideas every day, at least once a day. I'm putting out content there. So ask them, just simply Jones Loflin. You go into LinkedIn, type that, and it will pop up. The second place is my website, just jonesloflin.com would be where they can go learn more about my services. They can also go to jonesloflin.com/podcast, jonesloflin.com/podcast. I have a number of resources I've curated there that are based on today's discussion so that they can get some more ideas and take that next step with improving their ability to focus.
That's wonderful, Jones. Thank you so much for sharing your gift today, your wisdom and your insights. Really powerful, and it's applicable to every single human on the planet. That's what's so amazing about your work. And I feel motivated to go and practice a lot of these things that we've discussed today myself, and I know the audience will as well. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure, Mick, and I appreciate your fantastic questions, which make sure that our time together today was helpful for your listeners.
That was Jones Loflin on Focused as a Bee. A powerful reminder that meaningful productivity starts with clarity, not chaos. As leaders, our job isn't to just get things done, it's to get the right things done. And Jones gave us a practical toolkit of repeatable strategies that allow us to do just that. So let me leave you with some questions. Are you spending your time or are you investing it? Are you busy being busy or are you busy being productive and busy being prolific? What tips from Jones are you going to put into practice? Share a comment and let us know what resonated with you and what action you'll take so that you can be more productive. Until next time, keep showing up with purpose, with clarity and courage, because the world needs more great leaders just like you. Thank you for listening to The Leadership Project at mixbeers.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.